Well, I think this is the question of the week, quite frankly. It's this Denver Jets game. How confident are you in Garrett Wilson, who's wide receiver 5 right now in PPR, and Cortland Sutton, who's wide receiver 10 right now in PPR? We'll start with which one are you more confident in, Jamey?
I'm more confident in Cortland Sutton. I think he can still have some level of success against Sauce Gardner, where Garrett Wilson, you already laid it out. He's struggled against the secondary throughout his career. And Patrick Surtain, I just think, is on a different level than Sauce Gardner. So I'm more concerned about Garrett Wilson.
I did a little bit of a study just looking at the guys that have gone up against Surtain so far and what it's done to their target volume, what it's done to their fantasy production. So far this year, they've gotten about 90% of the targets they normally do, which is higher than I expected. Scored about 63% of the fantasy points they normally do. Now, for Garrett Wilson, who's averaging 14, 15 fantasy points per game, 16 fantasy points per game, if he scores 2/3 of that, he might still be a good number 3 wide receiver. I think
he's averaging 19 points.
19. So yeah, I mean, if he does that, it'll be fine. 12. That's a borderline wide receiver too, which is about where I have him ranked, I guess. I think the really interesting thing for the Jets, I agree with Jamey. I'm starting Sutton over Wilson, and I'd like to get away from Wilson. I don't think I have any teams where I can. The interesting thing is we've seen some teams move targets around a little bit and throw to somebody else more.
Right.
Who in the world is that on the Jets?
Mason Taylor, Breece Hall. But you're right. I mean, who's done well against the Broncos? Keenan Allen, 11 targets, 19.5 fantasy points. Devontae Smith had a big game against Riley Moss, their number 2 cornerback. He had 114 yards on 10 targets, 19 fantasy points. Quentin Johnston was actually shadowed by Patrick Surtain. Yep. I don't remember how many of his fantasy points came against Surtain. I feel like he had a big play on I don't remember. But he scored 14.9 fantasy points. He had 6 catches for 89 yards on 10 targets. They've held Ladd McConkey, Michael Pittman, Calvin Ridley, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, and A.J. Brown to 9.3 or fewer PPR fantasy points. That's Denver. And their pass rush. I mean, it's not just the cornerback matchup. The Cowboys had a bunch of sacks last week. They had the worst pass rush in football, basically, and they got to Justin Fields. So what are the Broncos going to do? But on the other side, guys, Dave gave me some good notes here. Cortland Sutton has played the Jets in 2022, 2023, and 2024. He scored 1 touchdown, never had more than 60 yards, never had more than 3 catches, did not get shadowed by Gardner, but according to PFF, he had 1 catch for 13 yards on 5 targets against Sauce Gardner. I
think the nice thing for Denver is if you want to speculate on a lower end wide receiver who could benefit from that, Troy Franklin's been a pretty clear number 2 there. And so if you want to just put in the Broncos wide receiver 2 as your wide receiver 3, Troy Franklin could be a decent play this week.
All right. So Wilson is 29th for Jamey, 17th for Dave, 14th for Heath. Sutton is top 17, 14th to 17th for everybody. So clearly you're favoring Sutton over Wilson. Mm-hmm. Sutton's a start for you guys. Wilson is kind of a flex for the 2 of you. Dave's a little bit higher. You know what? When we get to this game, I think we'll mostly skip the wide receiver talk.
I think that brings up a good point, though. Like when I say I can't find a way to get away from Wilson, the vast majority of my leagues, I have to start 3 wide receivers, and we're all starting Garrett Wilson for the most part. If you're in a 3 wide receiver league,
there was one question in the chat. I forget it was Keon Coleman and somebody else over Garrett Wilson. Like, no, you're not doing that. Right. You got to have still a pretty solid roster to sit Garrett Wilson in 3 receiver leagues.
Okay, so how many of the Chargers wide receivers would you start over Garrett Wilson?
All 3 for me.
I would start Allen and Johnston. I can't get Ladd ahead of them.
How many of the Chargers wide receivers would you start over Cortland Sutton?
Chargers receivers?
Yeah, what did I say?
I have Allen and Johnston ahead of Sutton.
I will probably drop Sutton a little bit. So yes, I will start. I definitely right now Johnston, and I'll start Allen over him too.
So I mentioned all those wide receivers against the Broncos that haven't scored even 10 PPR fantasy points, like A.J. Brown and Ladd McConkey. Not that McConkey was shadowed by Surtain, but who else? It was Pittman.
Ridley. Higgins wasn't either. Right?
No, Chase got Surtain, but Higgins, Chase, AJ Brown, Calvin Ridley, they didn't score 10. It's a similar stat for wide receivers against the Jets, but it's more like 13. They've held DK Metcalf, Mike Evans, George Pickens, and Tyreek Hill to 12.3 to 13.7 PPR fantasy points. Number 2 wide receivers have often been better. Calvin Austin was better than Metcalf. Abuka was better than Evans. Ryan Flournoy was better than Pickens. Those are against the Jets. So it's like a similar thing, but not quite as bad as what happens to number 1 wide receivers against the Broncos. So just something to keep in mind. All right. Well, that was, I know we usually don't go that in depth during this segment, but I really feel like it's, 2 of the best corners and 2 of the best fantasy wide receivers. It's really cool. It's really intriguing. Detroit at Kansas City. Start or sit, Xavier Worthy?
Start.
Yeah, I'm starting him.
But you know where I'm going with this. Xavier Worthy or the other 2 guys?
When I adjusted, it will be Worthy over both of them.
I've got it Sutton just 1 spot ahead of Worthy, and Worthy definitely over Wilson.
Okay. Seattle at Jacksonville. This is an interesting game. Could be a really good game, but the defenses aren't bad. Is Jackson Smith and Jigba the only must start in this game?
No, you're starting Etienne.
Let me tell you something about this game, though. Seattle-Jacksonville. I think Cam Ward has the lowest running back target rate in football. 2 and 3 are the 2 quarterbacks in this game. They don't throw to their running backs, and Seattle's got a great run defense. So it feels like could be a little bit of a trap for Etienne.
I think Seattle gives up the most receptions to running backs. So I wonder if Trevor Lawrence's running back target rate goes up this week.
And it does coincide with Brenton Strange being out. So there's, available targets that, could go, whether it's Etienne or not, that remains to be seen. It could be Tootin, but you would hope it's Etienne. But yes, Keith, you're right. This is the team that I said Heath.
Yeah.
I said Heath.
You did not say Heath. You definitely
did. I just helped the H1. Yes, it is a great situation for Etienne or Tootin, hopefully Etienne, to catch the ball.
Yeah, you think so. They've faced Christian McCaffrey, Jalen Warren, Rashad White, Kamara. They faced Kamara. They faced a lot of good pass catching running back Seattle. All right, Arizona's at
it worked out great last week for Rashad White.
It did, but like Brenton Strange missed most of the game last week, and Etienne, how many? Oh, actually, he did have a little bump in catches last week, didn't he? 2 or 3.
I think you're right. The injury should play a factor, but sometimes coaches adjust their game plans. When they have their personnel.
Yeah, he had 3 catches. I think that was a season high. I tied a season high for him. All right, sorry. Back to one question for each game. Arizona at Indianapolis. Start or sit Michael Carter?
You're wrong, Rob. Low end number 2 running back.
Yeah. I'd like him better as a flex. I hope I have 2 better guys, but I don't feel awful about it if I have to start him.
Michael Carter, Cortland Sutton, Garrett Wilson.
Sutton, Carter, Wilson.
Yeah, that sounds right, except in full PPR. Everything else, Carter's at the top.
Chargers at the Dolphins. Bonanza?
I don't know. Could be tough for the Dolphins.
I mean, this is like, I don't really have a lot of confidence in either one of the running backs the Chargers might use. And Miami's run defense was so bad last week. So it's going to be really interesting to see, I hope the Chargers don't just fully commit to the run and then average 3.5 yards per carry, and it's a slow, boring game.
Rams are at the Ravens. Can you start any Ravens?
I would start Flowers as a low-end number 2 receiver, PPR.
I'm starting Flowers, and I think a lot of people are going to be stuck starting Henry. I agree with Jamey. I'd like to sit him, but I'd start Derrick Henry over Michael Carter.
How many plays did the Ravens run last week?
47.
40.
Effectively or actually run?
They ran 40 plays. That's, shocking number. Cleveland at Pittsburgh. Start or sit DK Metcalf and his 5 to 6 targets a game.
Number 2 receiver.
I feel like I want to rank him lower than I can, but I can't rank him below Garrett Wilson. And I might have to make that change. It looks like I might have Wilson 1 spot ahead, but He's that borderline number 2, number 3. It's kind of like AJ Brown's one spot in front of him, Garrett Wilson's one spot behind him. You got Brian Thomas Jr. and Ladd McConkey and Devontae Smith in that range. I think you probably start him.
Okay. It's not exactly a tough matchup. Cleveland's 18th against wide receivers. They just made a cornerback swap with the Jaguars. Tennessee at Las Vegas. Rank these guys: Tony Pollard, Calvin Ridley, Jacoby Myers.
Myers, Pollard, Ridley.
Pollard, Myers, Ridley.
Is it me, or does anybody else feel this way? I don't like running back this week.
I mean, it kind of dies out around like 17, 18.
Yeah, like I like Tony Pollard last week. He just as one guy, for example. I like Michael Carter last week. They have much tougher matchups this week. The Raiders actually have a good run defense. What if they don't? The Titans average 18 running back carries per game. Okay. Last week it was 14 for Pollard, 4 for Spears. If we get more of a split, 18 is not going to cut it, And
they said we're getting more of a split.
Yeah, they did. They've been saying it all off season too.
Yeah.
So I'm nervous about Pollard,
but you also have a situation where they actually may be playing with the lead in this game.
Yeah, they've had the Titans have been horrible offensively. They have played, off the top of my head, with the Broncos, Rams, Texans, Cardinals, and
Colts.
one other who?
Colts.
I mean, they've had a really tough schedule, so this is the easiest defense they've faced.
When you need your sports news all the time,
we've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ gives you a snapshot of all the sports that matter to you. When you need your sports in a snap, find it on CBS Sports HQ, streaming free anywhere you are.
Cincinnati is at Green Bay, and the Bengals have a new quarterback. And how many must-start wide receivers do we have in this game? Cincinnati at Green Bay.
2.
1.
Jamey says 1. Dave says 2. So it's Jamar Chase. And Dave, who's the other?
I still think T. Higgins is worth a shot. And if it's a 3-receiver league, then Romeo Doubs is worth a shot.
Okay, so you say T. Higgins. Jamey, you don't have T. Higgins as a must-start.
No, I don't think at this point he should be considered a must start. I mean, if you're starting him, that's certainly fine. I'm going to see right now what his start percentage is, just out of curiosity. His start percentage on Thursday, so lineups for the most part have been set, is 44%. I think that's kind of accurate, So, when I think must start, I think top 20-ish caliber player, and I don't think he's a top as position. I don't think he belongs in that category.
And when I'm just a little bit behind that, I think I'm 24th in my rankings. So low end number 2 receiver for sure.
I know from just earlier this week when we discussed it, I forget what show, Heath and Sportsline. I'm not as low as this. I'm closer. I'm in between Dave and this. Heath and Sportsline have him as the 46th receiver for the week.
Ooh.
This is T. Higgins we're talking about here. Okay. Let's go to San Francisco at Tampa Bay. Would you start?
I think if you're starting T. Higgins, you're hoping for one big play.
Yes.
His target volume is not going to be there.
So far, I mean, that's the thing. Like, Flacco throws 40 times almost every single time he plays a game.
And how many times was Browning throwing?
That's a good question.
It's a slight upgrade at quarterback.
Oh, I agree.
It's not a huge upgrade. It's a slight upgrade. Better ball placement from Flacco. And I think Flacco is a little less pressure sensitive than Jake Browning was. So I think it's a small win for both receivers. I think they'll be trailing in the game, or at least be competitive in the game. I don't think the Bengals are going to play with a lead. They're not going to have a game like the Browns had, like Flacco had against Green Bay the first time he played them. I'm thinking Flacco gives both of those receivers a chance to put up some good numbers.
Okay, first of all, we won't talk about T. Higgins when we talk about this game because we're going, pretty deep here. But the Packers have allowed the fewest completions of 20 or more air yards, so fewest deep ball completions. Now, they've had a bye, but still, they've been very good at eliminating the deep ball. Even if you think about it, they gave up 3 at Dallas. One of them was a great catch by George Pickens. One of them was that prayer to Jalen Tolbert. And 2 of them came in overtime. They're probably a little gassed. So they've been very good at eliminating the deep ball. But I'm glad you asked that question.
Gas?
What's that?
They had gas?
Yeah, they're very gassy.
Jake
Browning, in the last 3 games that he started, Browning threw 27, 25, and 40 passes. And the only decent game was the one for Higgins, was the one that he threw 40. But 27 and 25 passes in 2 games at Minnesota and at Denver, very low for a Bengals offense for sure. All right. Let's see. One question for each game. Going to San Francisco at Tampa Bay. Start any 49ers other than Christian McCaffrey?
Yes.
Yep.
Jake Tongas.
And Kendrick Bourne.
How do you feel about Bourne if Juwan Jennings is back?
It would certainly change the opportunities that he has. So I would not be as excited about him, but then I would be excited about Juwan Jennings playing. So
it's true. Would they both be number 3 receivers, or would you pick one to be a wide receiver?
They would both be number 3 receivers, just because I think there'd be some splitting of what Bourne's targets were last week, and spreading the ball around a little bit. I'd be less excited about Tongas too.
Me too. Yep.
Yeah, it's a pretty big deal if Juwan Jennings is able to play as it relates to the other players on the team. Chicago at Washington. DeAndre Swift or Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt?
Bill.
Krosky-Merritt.
It's kind of an easy one, right? The matchups are so different. Swift has a very tough run defense. Krosky-Merritt, he's facing a tough run defense. Krosky-Merritt facing one of the worst run defenses, and he leads the NFL in yards per carry. He leads all running backs anyway.
It's been awesome. And Bears won't have Grady Jarrett again.
And Dallas is at Carolina. Starter sit Bryce Young. Every quarterback that has faced the Cowboys has finished top 12. 3 of 5 have finished top 4 for the week. Starter sit Bryce Young.
Desperation start. I have one league where Kyler was my starter. I'm pivoting to Bryce Young this week, whether Kyler plays or not. It's a hope at this point. He had a good matchup last week and only got you 15 fantasy points. So
right.
I do think that there's the potential, based on how the Cowboys offense has looked, that we get a high scoring game here and that Bryce Young has to throw.
Okay. How about New England at New Orleans? Start any Saints?
Olave in PPR.
But similar to the T. Higgins comment, he's not a must start player.
Yeah. So would you rather start Olave or the number 1 receiver for the 49ers?
Olave.
I would start Bourne if there's no Jennings, and I would start Olave if Jennings plays.
Okay. Buffalo at Atlanta. These two teams are 1-2 against tight ends. So are you concerned about either Dalton Kincaid or Kyle Pitts in this game?
I'd be concerned about Kincaid because he showed up to practice on Thursday wearing a non-contact jersey. So I'd like to know a little bit more about what's going on with him and could that limit him in the game? And Jamey especially has talked about this all week. Kyle Pitts, if there's no Darnell Mooney, he's a go. If there is Darnell Mooney, you could still start Pitts, but you'd have to lower expectations.
Yeah, I mean, what Kincaid is doing is really interesting. He has a very high ADOT, and yet he has about an 84% catch rate. Mm-hmm. So he's catching a ton of passes. I'm just going to go ahead and give you the stat of the game for that game because I think it's so cool. So what would you say if your tight end got you 7.7 PPR fantasy points, just as a floor every week, at least 7.7?
The Kyle Pitts Mendoza line.
Yeah, it's not bad, right? Like you settle.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of want a little bit higher than that as a floor.
I think if you walked into the week saying that's what I'm definitely getting,
right,
with the chance for more, I'd be okay with it if I don't have a stud.
Yeah, it's not so bad, right? So Pitts has
that's got to be better. I'm just throwing a name out there, and I don't know this to be factual, but it's probably better than Laporta.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Yeah, I think it is. But Pitts 7.7 or more fantasy points in every game. Kincaid, if Kincaid had not scored a single touchdown all season, he would have scored 7.7 or more fantasy points in 4 of 5 games.
Wow.
I thought he hasn't been that touchdown dependent because he catches 4 to 5 passes in 4 of 5 games. But
he just had the one game with the only catch being a touchdown.
Laporte is averaging almost 11 PPR points per game, but he's coming off of a game where he had over 20.
Yeah. All right. Well, anyway, something to keep in mind here. It's hard to get Kincaid out of your lineup. Pitts has been good, but Buffalo has been so good against tight ends. Atlanta hasn't really been tested, but Buffalo is a legit super tough matchup.
I think in the case of Pitts, there are 2 things potentially working in his favor. One is Mooney not practicing coming off a bye, and 2, you alluded to this, if Milano's out too. So if Milano does not play,
I don't think that matters, honestly.
Well, I think both things matter.
Oh, the Mooney thing for sure. Because I was watching how they covered Hunter Henry, and I mean, I I could count on one hand, I think, the amount of times I saw Milano on Henry. I could be wrong about that, but it was usually like safeties or just zone defense. So I don't think that matters. He used to be incredible at covering tight ends, but I really don't know that's the case anymore. But the Mooney thing for sure. Anyway, yeah, like, do you have Pitts in your top 10 this week?
10th.
I do not. And he'll move up probably to like 11 at best if Mooney does not play. Right now, he's 13th.